Welcome to the Art and Science of Joy podcast. This podcast is all about inspiring people to live more joyfully. So if you're seeking a bit more joy in your own life or seeking to bring some more joy to the lives of others, then this podcast could well be for you. And welcome to the Year of Joy series, in which I talk to experts on different joy ingredients each and every one of us can cultivate to develop our own recipe for joy. I'm Andrew Cannon, and I have the honor to be your host. And in this episode, I'm excited to be talking with Laurel Colless about having a positive impact on the planet. Australian, New Zealander, Laurel is a sustainability writer, kids science fantasy novelist, and founder of the Carbon Busters Club, a climate science adventure program for children. With over 25 years of experience working in environmental business and journalism across the globe, she combines her expertise in sustainability and technology communications with her passion for education and storytelling. As an Gore Climate Reality Leader, Laurel's work spans ESG reporting, stakeholder engagement strategies, and creating new mythologies for today's youth that reflect the climate challenges of their generation. Laurel is the author of the Blue Peter series, a science fantasy adventure where Echo School friends solve world problems and face off against climate demons, and a bit more of that later. Laurel believes that the changes we make for a more sustainable life should not be punishments, but should positively impact our own health and well-being along with the planet. When Laurel is not writing or busting carbon, she enjoys reading, watching movies, forest walks with her dog, and sometimes her cat, and spending time with her Finnish husband and their two teenage daughters. Welcome to the show, Laurel.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for the introduction. And just if I might correct you on one small detail, it's the Peter Blue series, not to be confused with Blue Peter, which was a thing back in the 70s, 80s in the UK.
There you go. Thank you for correcting me.
Thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Great to be here.
My UK childhood kicking in there. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. I thought of that immediately. Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful, yeah. Laurel. Wonderful. Well, I'd like to start by asking you to share with our listeners a bit about your own life and how joy has or has not been a part of your life journey so far.
Okay, so joy for me, first of all, I'm living in Finland, the happiest country in the world. So you don't walk around showing your joy and sort of having this giddy happiness when you're feeling joyful. For me, joy, even back in childhood, it really came more from being out in nature and feeling movement. I used to be a gymnast when I was young, so I was always standing on my head, doing cartwheels, walking on my hands. I became a competitive gymnast and then a competitive trampolinist. I love movement. So thinking back to childhood, it was when I was moving around or being out hiking in nature or on my bike, doing things where I was breathing and feeling and moving. That to me is what joy feels like. And sometimes it wasn't, the happiest times if you're on a family bike ride and you're, pushing hard against a headwind, but you're feeling something and it feels natural and it's enlivening. So that's kind of how I, even now as an adult, think about joy. Of course, I'm getting older and it's more sedate now. Yoga, walking are more my preferred activities. But it's still the nature and maybe being out in the forest. So here in Finland, I'm about 10 minutes walk from a forest. You mentioned walking with my dog and my cat.
Yeah.
I can be forest bathing, as the Japanese say, in 10 minutes. So that's the kind of thing that I really associate with joy.
Lovely. If we had more time and a bit more space, I'd probably ask you to do a cartwheel or stand on your hands. But,
I'll take you up on it.
Yeah, excellent. We'll save that for the next show on physical well-being. Absolutely. But today we're talking about having a positive impact on the planet. And one of the things, that comes to mind, or one of the questions I have is, is this a new thing for you, or has this always been important to you?
Well, I grew up in New Zealand in the 70s. I had a family. I mean, my parents, of course, it was driven by my parents, but we had a garden, we had a compost heap. We did all those things where we're close to nature, family hiking, as I mentioned. So I would say yes. However, later in my career, early in my career, later in my as I entered into adulthood, I focused on sustainability in my career. So it was more business led. So looking at working with corporations and looking for ways that they could, now we call it ESG, environmental, social, and governance issues, where that they're reporting on and being more and more mandated to report on how companies can work on sustainability issues while still doing good business. And in fact, very often seeing huge improvements in their business, in their numbers. So that kind of in my early adult life, and then gradually, as you mentioned, I've got into working with children too. So yeah, it's been a running thread, definitely. And I don't know if you want to mention these 8-week power plans that I've been working on with you for some of your audience members. But that's also something where I brought quite a lot of my own experience into coming up with some of the themes and some of the actions.
Yeah, so it's like a combination of sort of, always, growing up being in nature, sort of laying the foundation for that, I suppose,
Definitely.
Understanding and empathy for nature and the planet. And then through your education, finding a path through your career to help businesses. And I think that's hugely important, right? Because I feel sometimes there's a lot of pressure on the individuals to sort of act and take responsibility for this. But it's good to know that, companies are also being pressured in some way to do it by the governments, but also on the other hand, they're realizing the positive benefits, right? Again, you talked about that in your thing, right? About how positivity is the key to change, not punishment.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I've been preaching for some time now, even to myself. It's huge impact to the bottom line for some companies by making small sustainability changes, and certainly it's a very important way to address risk, in all aspects of the business. So yeah, but when it comes to the individuals, we've been talking about this already, Andrew, that I think we need to personalize the kind of actions that we want to promote in our own lives that make good sense also for us. So it's not about punishment. It's not about the government telling me I shouldn't eat meat, or somebody wants to take away my car or take away my treasured holiday, my annual holiday where I get on a plane. No, it's about looking for the things that taking a kind of inventory of your activities and the way you live, and looking for things that you could do that would make really good sense for the planet, as well as enhancing your own health and well-being, or maybe helping you economically when it comes to, for example, recycling, repurposing. If it comes to ethical purchasing, we talk about that in the project plan. Making purchases, you can congratulate yourself by making purchases that actually contribute to the kind of world you want to live in. Or if it's about...
So let's continue down this road. I do want to talk about the book, and I'll come back to that a bit later. But I think, we've started down this path of this conversation. I want to continue with that. But I just want to pause for a moment. And, I think most people understand how pressing this issue is, how important it is. But do you feel it's more important now than it has been before? Is there a sense of urgency now? What's your feeling on that?
Well, I was really excited about the Paris Convention, which, we're working towards with these 2030 goals, and, majority of countries and governments got behind that. But we're not seeing, we had, I don't know, for people who follow climate, excuse me, we had set ourselves the task as a world of limiting average global warming temperatures to 1.5 or 2 degrees above industrial levels, and we're not even close to getting there. So the urgency is definitely there, but I'm not about to sit here, Andrew, and start telling your listeners that it's all over. If you look at the numbers, we're already fried. But I'm determined to be hopeful. I'm determined to take an optimistic viewpoint. And, the climate crisis itself began very slowly. If we monitor temperatures over the last 1,000 years, there was one famous climatologist, Michael Mann, in the 90s, who likened the crisis to the hockey stick.
Okay.
So you've seen these graphs that are called the hockey stick graphs.
Yeah.
The people love them because they love hockey. So the climate crisis, average temperatures were very static for a very long time until we got to the industrial age. And then we had this sudden spike up over the last 200 years. So that's how the crisis sort of came quite suddenly. And I've been working, I don't have that many disciples. Maybe, Andrew, I can convince you. But I've been working on a hockey stick approach to solving the crisis. And my belief is that right now, we've got a lot of good ideas, technologies on our side. There's a lot of things happening, but it's not enough. We're down in this dip. But I feel like when things really, when we really get to that 11th hour where people are scrambling, businesses are going under, extreme weather events have gone beyond what we could just call coincidence, then I think we're going to get that, what I call the hope spike.
The hope stick. The hope stick.
Yeah.
We call it the hope stick.
Solve the crisis. So let's think like that, because, that hope is pretty much, or optimism, maybe we could call it, is the one resource that we're not running out of and we can still use in abundance.
Yeah, and the other one is positivity. I think, there's a lot of science and evidence to show on the power of positivity and the power of optimism to create momentum, to create change. And so, yes, some people are going to act, some people are going to lead action, some people are going to actively follow, give up their jobs and, go and actively work on it. But for most people who are trying to, continue through life, and some people have very hard lives in many respects,
yes.
Right? It's yes, take actions where you can, but this positive mindset, this optimistic mindset will lead to this hockey stick. I'm totally there with you. It's a tipping point type analogy where we're going to reach a point where change will happen very quickly for the good, for the positive when it happens. So we can't get too depressed, too much down this road of anxiety. And so we're going to share, in a moment, some great tips that you have. You mentioned the power plan that we've been working on for the Year of Joy community members, which is fantastic. And I'm excited to see that launch and help our members with practical ways of doing that. But before getting there, I just want to pay attention a little bit for a few minutes to this concept of climate anxiety, climate depression, because I know a lot of young people in particular are struggling with that at the moment. So what advice would you give for somebody who is feeling a little bit anxious or depressed about the state of the climate at the moment?
Yeah, well, the eco-sadness, that is very real, and that is something that I'm addressing in my novels. I mean, my novels are targeting 9 to 12-year-olds, but I still remember when my own daughters were at that age, and I remember my daughter Julia crying herself to sleep for some nights after hearing about deforestation and thinking about all those trees and the loss and wondering why grown-ups were allowing this kind of thing to happen. So when we're talking about young people on the eco-sadness, it's very much about kids learning at school that we have this urgent situation and that we're in crisis, and then looking sort of around them and seeing that the grown-ups aren't doing enough. And I think that's what spurred the Greta Thunberg from Sweden. She's in our neighborhood. Her school strikes, I mean, that resonated with so many people. And now the thing, I'm getting excited about what's going on with young people in the US and also in Europe who are starting these lawsuits. I mean, launching legal battles. And right now I saw in the New York Times very recently it's Juliana versus the US, and it's one 15-year-old kid. Of course, she has a lot of support, but nevertheless, she's standing up and she's gone to the Supreme Court.
Wow.
So, I mean, there hasn't been a lot of success with these legal legal, I guess, climate justice through the court system, we could call it. So far, the cases haven't gone forward, but they're definitely contributing to the conversation. And governments failing to address risks when they have all the information in front of them. So I think that when kids get out and start feeling empowered and getting into the conversation, I think that's something that can really help this so-called eco-sadness, because they feel like, and I have another character in my novel actually who tackles one of the monsters. So in my novels, I've demonized climate change and extreme weather to make it a bit more palatable and easier to put into fantasy fiction. But one of my characters actually does sort of hug the monster and sort of approach it. And afterwards she said, you know, helping helped. Maybe that's the phrase we're looking for. If you could, helping can help. If you can get out there and do something, it's the way of tackling it.
Yeah, I think so. But there's also a responsibility, I suppose you say, for the adults of us who are maybe a little bit older, such as myself, to support the young people, right? To give them that feeling that they're supported if they do take action, if they do want to do it, that, you know, we're there beside them. We are supporting them with their legal actions, with whatever actions they're taking to do this, and for doing our bit as well, obviously. But I think especially for the young people to realize they're not alone, that they're not forgotten, that we're not,
they have a voice, have
a voice to have and we can amplify that voice, right, through our channels, through your books, is a great way of doing that, of amplifying that voice. So
books, I'm determined in the books to be action led but also hope filled. So and you know, that to me feels like the answer. But I think any child in the world who hears about Juliana versus the US, a 15-year-old at the podium, I love that.
Yeah. It is amazingly inspirational, and the more people that do that, the more momentum we get. Again, this hope stick becomes a reality.
Oh, so you've adopted my hockey stick.
I have. No, I moved from a hockey stick to a hope stick. I got a hope stick.
Okay, I can work with that.
But we're on the books now, so tell me about the Peter Blue books. How did that all come about?
It basically came from getting fed up myself with the adult, with the grown-ups. I was working on quite a difficult project. I was 5 years in the US, living in Washington, D.C., and working on a project to do with energy efficiency in big buildings, and working with developers and the construction sector, which is definitely a laggard in this. But, you know, I'm not here to judge. But I ended up getting really fed up because I found that the adults I was working with were mostly concerned with short-term gains and very little consideration. Even when I showed them the business case, I showed them huge energy savings over a 7-year period through these building retrofits. So after I left the US and ended up moving to Greece with my husband, who's a diplomat, I was without a job for the first time in my life. I couldn't work there, and the economy had imploded in Greece. So I decided to start working with children and just focus on the upcoming generation. And my own children were then 8 and 10. So it was a perfect way for me to start thinking about how I could teach climate science and global warming in ways that made sense to children. And storytelling, you know, is what grew. The storytelling in the books grew from getting started with these volunteer classroom activities.
Yeah, and I love the way you're using fantasy and the mythology connection, very powerful ways of telling stories, for sure. Where are you at the moment with the books?
So I've got my 3rd book out and the 4th on its way. So I've been about one book every 2 years, and it's been a journey. I mean, writing is hard, but it's something that also brings me a lot of joy. I mean, it gets me up in the morning, and I'm writing every morning now, even Sundays.
Wow.
Because it's the way I start the day, and I've developed that habit. And so if you trust your process and you just keep writing, keep working, the books just materialize.
Well, that's fantastic, and we'll be sharing the links obviously with everybody where they can grab their copy. We're heading towards the gifting season, so
I would love that, because I really want to find an audience, particularly in the US, where the book is available, of course, on Amazon.
Yeah, we will shout that out for you and inspire people to grab a copy and to leave a review as well.
Thank you. That's the one thing that's quite hard, because in Europe, there are less Amazon users in Europe. So I have friends and I have advanced readers who come with good comments, but they're not actively on Amazon. So they're not allowed to leave the review. So I would love that. Thank you.
We will do our bit to share that. But you meant,
Andrew, just jump into one thing you said about the fantasy fiction, because some people think, how can you do something which is raising awareness of climate change, which is science, when you're writing fantasy? And what I did with these books was create a world which is very similar to our own, with very similar problems, and put an overlay of fantasy. So I invented the anthrogs, which are these demonic or demonization of extreme weather. And that, to me, was the way that I could approach the topic with children, with child readers, so they could have this fear, but it's a kind of safe fear. Because there are many ways to tell the truth. And fantasy is one way.
Absolutely. If it worked for Tolkien, it works for Rowling, it works for you. Right?
Oh, thank you.
Because it works for the audience. It works for the audience. You're in that group. You understand that the audience needs to understand them. They need to buy into the message. They need to become emotionally attached to the characters, to what they're doing. So I think that's a great thing you're doing. So congratulations.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Yeah, I love it too. And I feel like, I'm on a good journey.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the habit of writing, and that sort of segues nicely into, I suppose, one of the key questions of our talk is habits and actions people can take to actually have a positive impact on the planet. Now, I know, when we've been working on the power plan for the Year of Joy community members, there's, loads of things people can do across many different areas of their lives. And so way too much for us to go through today. But if you had to boil it down to a few suggestions you would have for people to take away from our chat today about what they could do to have a more positive impact.
I don't know, maybe should I choose 2 or 3? Well, I mean, first of all, I need to premise it always with this idea that you're not being selfless, you're being selfish. You're going through the list and you're thinking, that sounds like something that would be fun for me. Right. Not, I must do this. I must never eat steak again, or I'm a bad person. No, maybe think about having meat, or doing the meatless Monday. Everybody knows about that. But thinking about, just taking one day where you had no meat, or 2 days. And then when you start looking at your diet, you can also think about local sourcing, looking around your community and finding out where local producers are. And again, the benefit to that would be getting more connected with the community. And the personal benefit could also be having fresher, more delicious food. And, changing your diet might even help you shed a few pounds if that's something you're looking for, or just feel more healthy. And the same goes for transportation. I mean, looking at how you commute, or just taking 1 or 2 of your car journeys and converting them into walks or bike rides. That could hugely benefit your own well-being and energize you, and maybe even enhance your own creativity. So I have my best ideas when I'm out walking. So I'm just saying, think of it from a point of view of what makes good sense for me and what I would love to do.
Right, that puts us back to it's not a punishment, it's a pleasure, it's a benefit.
Let's really stress that.
Yeah, okay, no punishment, people. We're not doing the sacrifice, being flogged at
and taking away all your favorite things like your car. But there was one that I suggested, which I really like, and it came to me from reading about what other people are doing, because I haven't done this myself, but it's this idea of creating a library of belongings. So things like things for yard work, like I don't know, just things that you're using maybe once in a year or twice in a year, coming together with your neighbors, or if you're in a street, maybe people on one side of the street coming together and deciding that they'll share their lawnmower, they'll share the things that you don't need to all own one of. I mean, it's circular economy, but it's also this idea of community. And I love, someone taking the initiative to set something like that up.
Yeah.
Or one of new business idea. My daughter's now getting their clothes. Almost, it goes beyond thrifting, where you're buying secondhand and reusing and selling secondhand, but an actual clothing library where you go and get dressed for work, and you borrow the clothes for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then
I love it. It's like the little book library that we have now popping up everywhere, right? Everybody's got the little book library, so you could do similar things for clothes or for garden tools.
Exactly. So that kind of thing, that makes me feel excited. You'll get to know your neighbors, much better. And
and especially in the US, where we have a lot of members, a lot of these communities have WhatsApp groups. They have a LinkedIn group or a Facebook group where they already have this possibility, this channel.
Right. So it's really easy just to drop it in. And then also have fun with anything you decide to do. Have fun with it in your own socials as well. Send pictures, inspire other people. It's something to talk about and feel good about, whatever you decide to do.
Yeah. And I think, and that ties back into what you said, I think, about the local economy and supporting, local farmers. And that one of the challenges I think people have around that is it tends to be way more expensive than
that's understandable.
The thing from Brazil. But I think, if we could come together in these little communities and, maybe have a street of 50 houses or whatever, who all go to the farmer and say, look, we're going to, over the next 6 months, guarantee us 50 people to buy this amount of meat from you, or eggs or whatever.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Andrew. And
the economies of scale together. Right? Farmer says, okay, well, then I'll make sure, we got this amount of eggs available for you at a competitive price, because he knows, the farmer now knows that he's got this source of income.
Something guaranteed.
Yeah, so I like that.
So there are so many ways to think about it. And of course, with the 4 R's. So for week 8, I chose the 4 R's, the recycling, repurposing, reusing. But I also wanted to add a 5th one, which is refusing. So think about it was reducing, recycling, repairing, and reusing. There's a lot of fun and a lot of great economic savings in all of those. But refusing. So sometimes just refuse to take all this plastic packaging and look for ways where you can actually impact at the point of purchase even.
I like that.
Because, there's one great quote from Anna Lappe, who's working with local consumption and working with ethical purchasing. If you want to take the time, so this is not everybody's cup of tea, as we say in the Antipodes, but if you want to really look into some of the brands that you favor and see what their track record is on the environment or on social issues, as Anna Lappe put it, I have it in the quotes that I sent through to you. Every time you spend money, you're casting a vote for the kind of world that you want. That's Anna Lappe. And I love that, because we can empower ourselves. So think about your purchasing. If money's an issue, look for the things where you're going to make economic savings. Look for the easy wins, like cycling once a week to work. You'll save on gas money.
Right.
So all those things. Just think from your own personal standpoint on how you'd like to tailor your actions and what makes sense to you.
I love it. So I think we're tying it in, and we're really summing it up here, right? So if you tie it in that, yes, it's having a positive impact on the planet, but equally it's positively impacting you and your loved ones, whether that's through your well-being, your sense of belonging, your pocket,
Yeah,
Whichever
exactly.
way it works, do those things first, and then then maybe expand to others as you move forward. But take slow steps, move the things that you can do easily that bring you a benefit as well as
Yeah.
benefit the
And
planet.
feel good about yourself.
And feel good, positive. Get on
Feel
that
joy.
voice.
Sorry, we should be talking about joy. Feel joy.
Very good, and that's what we're going to wrap up with, Laurel. We're going to wrap up with the final question. I know you talked to the beginning really about what brings you joy as a child. Let's go straight to the moment. One or two things that are bringing you joy today.
Oh, well, I mean, I think I mention it already. I mean, for me, it's having a purpose. I mean, that is absolutely for me. Waking up in the morning, I've got my books, my characters are waiting for me.
Right.
It's something that, is my contribution. I'm hoping it will have a huge impact. I'm building my audience now. So yeah, having a purpose. And in fact, in one of the books, towards the end, they're sort of telling jokes about the sea. It's looking at plastic pollution, but they're talking about the sea, and one of them is asking, why is the sea mammal happy? And the answer is because he has a porpoise. Sorry, that's 10-year-old humor, but there's so much in that. This feeling of
it sounds like a dad joke to me, so absolutely.
Yeah.
All the dads out there got that one, and all the kids cringed when they heard it. Brilliant. Well, thank you, Laurel. It's been such a pleasure and a joy chatting with you today. I'll just mention on the purpose.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll just mention on the purpose side that if you, our listeners, are interested in finding out more about finding a purpose, we do have an episode with the lovely Rochelle Marie Lawson on that topic of finding your purpose. So check that one out. And I hope your listeners enjoyed this podcast episode as much as I have. And I hope you feel inspired to cultivate your positive impact on the planet and benefit yourself while doing so. If so, please check out the show notes for links to Laurel and her resources. And we've referenced the Year of Joy community a few times during the podcast. If you're not already a member, it's a free community where you can be inspired to and empowered to grow your joy muscle. So visit our website, theartandscienceofjoy.com, and find out more about that. Thank you once again for listening, and I hope you tune in for the next episode of the Art and Science of Joy podcast. Until then, stay well, stay joyful, and have a positive impact.